we're good to go. So welcome everyone. We're very excited to have you all here. This is our first ever panel event, Careers in Design. Today we'll be having our three three speakers present to you what they do, what they've been through in their career so far, and what tips and tricks they can give you. So we'll start with the very general question for all three of you. So we're going to go around and we each get to talk about it. We want to keep this part as short as possible so that we have more time for the other questions, but do feel free to say whatever you're thinking. So starting it off, let's start with Matt. Can you briefly introduce yourself, where you're from, what you do for a living, and what your journey was like in getting to where you are today?
Yeah. So so I actually I was studying psychology in college, and in college they have, wait, let me read this question one more time, sorry.
No worries.
Yeah, I don't want to give you the 20-minute story. I'll give you the brief introduction. Basically, I took the wrong test to get into grad school, and after that I ended up in the hospital with a disease that paralyzed me, and it was kind of an awakening call that I didn't really want to do what I studied. So I did a lot of research and found that I was just really interested in tech and in design, and actually went to this boot camp school for UX design and just fell in love with it. So I started working. I think I've been in the industry for almost 4 years now, and been loving it ever since. I've done quite a number of things. I started in it was like a call center software, but I did gamification, which is basically turning your product into a video game to help better motivate your employees to work harder for goals and rewards and stuff like that. So it was a good time with my psychology degree. And then from there, I just fell in love with web design, SEO, and that kind of stuff. And my career pretty much has been in that industry since. So I focus mainly on web design, and I currently work at Lookout.
Cool.
So yeah,
that's a great backstory. Sounds like straight out of a movie.
yeah.
We'll move on to Danielle.
Sure, I'll keep mine shorter than that. Actually, I started designing in high school. We had this multimedia class, and they taught us a bunch of different things, and kind of got interested in it, but then realized that design might not make enough money. So I actually went into nursing. I did music theory and how that could apply to Alzheimer's and diseases like that. After a couple of years of that, I kind of got mentally and emotionally tired. So I went and looked for a school for development, actually. And that school shut down. So again, I was kind of lost. And I also went to Dev Mountain, which is where Matt went. I just went a year and a half before he did. Let's see. And I was going to start development there, but then they saw my art and things like that, and they said, hey, you'd be a really great candidate for this new program that we're going to have for user experience design. And I just said, what the hell, let's just do it. So I went into that, started my career the last month of class, and I think I've been a designer for almost 7 years now, officially.
Wow.
And then I started off designing for finance, and then went on to augmented reality apps and games, and then took a break for a while and got back into it, and now I'm back in finance. So not as fun as games, but it's still good and very secure.
Cool. Awesome. And then let's wrap it up with Muha.
All right, say the best for last. No, you guys, you see, we joke around a lot. Matt and I are in a little bit of a competition here. So
Yeah, apparently we're contestants. Yeah.
right. So my name is Muhamed Causevic. I go by Muha as well. I'm a creative services manager at Lookout, the cybersecurity company. I immigrated to the United States in 2001 as a war refugee. So just a lot of like coming of age moments and all that stuff led me to wanting to be something artistic and expressive. And at first wanted to be a painter and an architect, and it kind of just changed into wanting to do design. I've taken almost every art history class known to man. So I accidentally minored in art history, and same thing, I found passion in photography, minored in photography, and then pursued my BFA in graphic design. It came somewhat natural to me to lean towards more traditional design, and especially like branding. So I dove into the world of agency life, where I serviced companies like Microsoft, Google, Lenovo, and some of the other tech giants in the Bay Area. I came to Lookout because I was actually following a mentor. So it was a creative director that was directing me at the agency, who taught me a lot. And then when she went over to Lookout, she asked if I wanted to come without even asking like about compensation or anything. I immediately said yes, and within like 5 minutes put in my 2 weeks notice. I just really wanted to work under this individual. And yeah, I've stayed here since then, and kind of taken up her position actually when she moved on.
That's very cool. Wow, so many diverse backgrounds. Like everyone got into it in a different way. It's very cool to learn.
Yep.
I'm gonna pass on the next few questions to Juliet, actually.
Yeah. So yeah, thanks everyone for introducing yourselves. You all, like Alex said, have really cool and diverse backgrounds. So now we're just gonna ask you like more specific questions. Some of them are gonna be more targeted at like what you do specifically, and just like specific questions about your career so far. So the first question is, as you started your career in design, what was your experience like in trying to connect with professionals in the industry and finding mentors? And do you have any tips for students who are embarking on a career in design? And we can go the reverse order. So Muhamed, you can start.
Sure. Yeah. I think I had a lot easier time with this just because I am Bay Area based, and it's like literally the mecca for design, and especially at the time of me like graduating college. Finding mentors, that's not a really difficult thing with so much technology and access to social media and LinkedIn and all that stuff. This is actually quite a simple task. And then anybody that's kind of a working professional, I mean, most people are going to want to help out students. I think when Alexandra asked us to do this, I mean, we right away just said, yeah, absolutely. Right. So like, I think that's don't be intimidated by that, and talk to anyone and everyone. So that's one thing that I think people make a mistake of, is like they kind of vet who they should talk to from a mentorship perspective. But I have conversations about design, and I've almost as a student kind of treated myself already as a working designer. I just said, I'm a designer. I didn't say, oh, I'm studying design, I'm not really getting it. I right away was confident. I'm like, okay, I'm a designer. And I would have conversations with anyone in any situation, even when we went out to a bar and I would not know who's doing what. I would have a conversation with someone and something would spark. And all of a sudden I just learned that this person is an engineer, and they know somebody who's a really talented designer, and then they actually connect me with that person. So I would say, keep your kind of bias down a little bit. Don't try to think like, oh, I need to go talk to this person because they're senior of this, or they're a product designer. Oh, I'm actually studying traditional design. I shouldn't be talking to an industrial designer. I think that's limiting you to networking.
Amazing.
Definitely.
Who else wants to go? You can, I guess, yeah, we can do Danielle and then.
Okay. Let me see.
Or
Trying
not.
to connect with people. The program I went to was really, really good at connecting anyone in that class with whoever is open to talk in the Salt Lake Valley. Salt Lake is actually pretty cool. They have a huge community surrounding design. We have things like product hunt. We have a lot of meetups, things like that. And just opening and going to all of those meetups that people mentioned, even if, like Muha said, you really don't have to have anything to do with it. You can just go and talk to people. That's definitely the best way to do it. Like you could meet the CEO of a company and not even know it. And it's honestly like even better if you don't know that they're the CEO of the company, in my opinion. But that's I think the school started it off, and then from there, just kind of reached out to other people. The lull in my career was actually like I got super sick and I didn't work for an entire year. And I went back online and went on to Meetup and went to all of those like design community meetups is what they're called. And that's how I started off my career again, actually. That's one of the reasons how I met Matthew. So it's a very good way to get back into it. And I think I second what Muha said. Talk to anyone and everyone. Like the very best mentor I ever had was, she was an industrial designer and she went into product design after that. And I learned the top lessons that she gave me were from her industrial design career. So yeah, just keep your mind open all the time. And yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Was that a question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, there
Yeah,
is, but
there's a question in the chat, I guess. We usually want to keep those for the end, but I guess since this one kind of addresses this part, you could, I guess I'll read it out loud. So someone asked in the chat, do you need to act knowledgeable when asking for a mentor or networking? Like, do you have to pretend like you know it all, or?
Yeah.
no.
Honestly, I don't think you should pretend like you know it all, because the mentor, like if somebody came to me and asked me to mentor them and they acted like they knew everything, I would say, why do you need me? So
yeah, and just to further add to that point, it's kind of part of your designer ethos to stay humble, and I think you should really work on that. If you don't possess that characteristic, like really exercise that characteristic. Like I said, I joke around with Matt and Alexandra. We putting on this persona that I'm like overly like confident or cocky or something like that. So we like joke around with that, but like it really, when you don't know something, you just got to admit that you don't know something, and the opportunity to learn really does open itself. You should not pretend that you know things that you don't know. And even within our industry, Matt and I work in cybersecurity for a while now, and I would say that I still don't fully understand our products, right? Because they're so technical and complex. And then we use abbreviations that are very industry specific. They are super nerdy. So I don't understand them, and I voice myself out in meetings a lot, asking like, oh, well, what does this mean? So until I learn it, but even then, I'm still not expected to know every single thing and how every single moving element works in the company, right? I'm doing sort of what's encompassed in my little world, and where I can contribute, but I don't know every single little thing, especially not within the cybersecurity sphere. I mean, it's a very complex it's a very complex industry.
Yeah, and even like I know we'll probably get to talking about like Chat GPT and the new softwares and stuff. Like that's the industry that you're entering. It's a continual learning process. You'll never know completely what you're doing And it's okay to embrace that. And it's actually even better because the curiosity is the start of problem solving. And that's when you really start to collaborate well with other people, better understand the scope of your projects, and really actually become more valuable, I think, in your job. So definitely, I think they call it imposter syndrome. Like that's a common thing I think everyone feels, especially when you first enter the industry, but embrace it instead of feel bad about it, I would say. It's good to know nothing or not know everything.
Yeah.
Awesome.
My answer to this too, I mean, same as what like I grew up in Salt Lake too, and it's got a great community. I would just add the point that you can find mentors in odd spots too. Like some of maybe my most notable mentors, I don't know if you'd call them mentors, but people helped me in my career growth, are like YouTubers, like that are just doing things that I am passionate about. So like Rand Siegel, he's a Figma designer and he's a Webflow builder as well. And he's really got me into Webflow, which is the main tool that I use today. So it doesn't have to be like somebody that like is with you the entire time in your career. It can just be like Muhammad said, somebody you go out to get a beer with and learn something that helps you grow. That's just as valuable in a lot of ways.
Thanks, everyone. That's super insightful. And it's true, like even outside of the design field, like generally our traditional view of what a mentor is not necessarily like the most accessible or even the most beneficial. So it's encouraging to know we could just like find mentors pretty much anywhere we go. And our next question is more about the skills and techniques that you guys have or think that a student or a person coming into a career in your field should have. So you can talk about your respective fields and what you think those techniques and skills should be. And we can start with alphabetical order. Danielle.
I know. I liked being in the middle. Key techniques and skills. Let's see.
We're picking on you, but you don't have to follow our order. Like you can just.
Oh no, it's okay. I just need to read the question carefully so I know that I'm answering it in a beneficial way. When they're interested in working, can you explain the last part a little bit? Because I think that's really big to me.
So working ...
Because it's supposed to be like in your.
Yeah, like in your respective careers, in your respective
fields. As a product designer,
yeah, as
skills and techniques. Okay, yeah. Well, all right. You could get really technical and list off all of the things that would be in your curriculum, or I could just give you the general thing like you have to be, people say this all the time, but empathy is like the biggest thing. Patience with yourself is definitely a skill that you need to have. The willingness to learn everything, but also the skill to be able to focus on the thing that you're really good at. I think that's like the biggest thing for, if I were to tell anybody that's new going into design, don't learn everything. You can like dip your toe in it, but don't feel like you have to be you have to be 100% know every little thing that could go on in product design. Hone in on the one thing that you're passionate about, the one thing that you're good at, and then really learn all the skills that you need for that one thing. I think that's the most general I could be.
That's great.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that too. I feel like, especially I've worked in like 5 different jobs now, and like you can't say there's a product design role really, at least from my experience. Every job has different needs, and I feel like every person has superpowers of some point, like some degree. And especially early in your career, I would take time and be like okay with not knowing exactly what you want to do, because then you'll start to discover like what you're passionate about plus what you're good at, and that'll help you really add value wherever you go. Because there's not like I worked in gamification and now I'm working in web design. Like it's two completely different fields, but I learned a lot of skills along the way that applied to my job today. So, and back to the question, I guess, what are the key techniques and skills a person should have?
For web design and
I think-
development specifically.
Yeah, for me, there's the tools, I can list them off, but like right now I work in a tool called Webflow, which is growing a lot. So that's a good one to look into. Figma is huge right now. That's probably your main design tool that you need in the industry. And then beyond that, analytics could be helpful if you want to like explore like Google Analytics or like Mixpanel, like those kind of analytics softwares. It's good to get feedback about what your users are, how they're using your product, so that you can better improve. But really the big stuff, like that's really gonna stick through every position you go in your career, is stuff like empathy, asking the right questions, listening properly, communicating well with your coworkers, that kind of stuff, kind of more of the soft skills.
Cool.
And yeah, I just want to echo out, you know, what everybody's been saying is like being that T-shaped person, which is essentially like kind of understand everything along the horizon, but then really vertically like hone in on something. And you know, starting up as a student, I wanted to just be really great at all of these different things, and I realized I fell short of a lot of them. So when I started to kind of hone in more on branding and marketing, communications design, that's when I started to kind of shine the most. And then even till this day, right, I've been in working in design and graphic design for you know, close to 10 years now. And you know, I will go to my intern now and ask that he does animation, because I can do animation, but I think that he's stronger at it, right? And things will be more efficient, and I could humble myself down and say, hey, listen, I think you're going to excel in this, right? So then understanding my strong suits and then my weaknesses, because at the end of the day, you want to think about the greater objective of your project and what will be most beneficial to the team, right? And trying to understand those, and those are some skill sets to really have. And then you know, identify those things, and then learn to receive feedback and learn to ask for feedback. These two things are really important, not just on a specific project, but your career in general. So how you work on a team, how you collaborate with some individual, how a meeting went. Ask for feedback on everything pretty much, and learn to receive it without being so defensive, you know. And if somebody like says stuff, like what irritates me a lot is like if somebody's like, oh, I don't like that, I get triggered, right? But then I've learned over some time to like pause and be like, okay, maybe, you know, they didn't really learn to give feedback, so I got to go and ask further questions like, why don't you like that? Or, you know, what's causing you friction? Or, you know, and then fish for more in-depth answers on that, so that I could actually find a digestible problem to solve, right? But it's kind of like discouraging to just hear somebody, you did all this work and somebody's like, I don't like it, right? So it's so ambiguous, and I think that's what irritates you more than the fact that they don't like it. It's just the fact that they didn't really give you anything that you could use to grow from, right? So so that's really it. As for skills and techniques, you know, I would say that instead of like listing on any specifics, every company is going to vary. The tools you use are going to vary. Get familiarized with some of the industry standard ones. Matt was talking about Figma, your Adobe suites and stuff like that. But almost every company you work at, things are going to change. So for you're going to work in one company for a couple of years, and then you're going to go to another company and they do things completely different. So you just have to be a little agile, right?
Yeah. Could I add a little bit to that?
Yeah.
Sorry,
please.
Matt. I was gonna say, so when
Oh.
you're receiving feedback, just like understand that every person has a different language and how they explain things to you. So just be patient and learn that person's language. They could say, I don't like something, and you could ask why, and they might have a hard time explaining. So you kind of just have to, like, again, empathize and kind of stand where they are and see what they're saying. That's the one thing I've learned about getting feedback from other people. And it's definitely not like a stab at you. It's just they're giving you feedback so that you could be better, or this could be better. So I think that's something first designers get really like scared about, is not being liked. So I don't remember the saying, but there's this thing where you hide your design until you think it's great. That's like actually the worst thing you could ever do for your designs. So yeah, just wanted to go into that more, Muha.
Yeah, I definitely learned from Matt about that a lot at first, and from Muha as well. When I started off at the company, I was having a really hard time, like, because it was my first real job. So I was like always hesitant, like I wasn't sure if I was going the right direction. But every time I would get feedback, I would go back to work on the design I was working on, and I would have like a fresh set of eyes that helped me like piece together, like, oh yeah, I was right, this does look good, and then, oh, this just doesn't look bad, and here's why. So it's very important to ask for, I would say, if I had to echo something, it's like asking for feedback is very, very important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The piece I'd add to that
Trade
too
numbers.
is, sorry, just knowing who to ask feedback for too, because sometimes if you're in the early stages, and you'll learn as you go in your career, you don't want to bring it up to your stakeholders. They'll freak out sometimes. They'll be like, stakeholders are like your executive team. But like team members, managers, you want to get that in front of their eyes. Engineers that will be working on the product. Those are definitely people to ask for help early on. And then when you get with the big wigs, make sure you have a buttoned up approach so they don't freak out.
Mentioning talking to engineers first, actually, that's a big skill that I think people should go into, is look into their language a little bit, so that when you talk to them, you can actually understand each other a little better. So that's one of the things on the list I would put on there. And oddly enough, I would also add in like public speaking. It's helped me a lot, because I'm so shy. Like, it's so hard for me to speak in front of people, but reading like a couple books and reading blogs daily and things like that, watching YouTube, that definitely helped me in learning how to speak to big groups like this, or even just a one-on-one with the vice president of design at my company. You know what I mean?
Awesome.
Speaking of that, this is something we just had a recent conversation about at our company. Talking to a bunch of names in Zoom is very stressful for speakers. So if I encourage, if anybody that wants to go on camera, because it does bring I guess less tension for people who are nervous to talk on camera. So that's just something to mention.
I have to shout out Coco's profile picture. That's a fun thing to look at while you're talking.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, that is a cool profile picture, Coco. Great, thank you so much. That was really insightful, and thanks, Alex, for also adding in your experience as a young designer. So I guess like this kind of connects or not, depends. We want to know like how you guys deal with imposter syndrome and this like lack of confidence maybe that you felt at the beginning, or maybe that you still feel, and how you deal with it. So
It never goes away.
It never
Yeah.
goes away.
Just embrace it.
And if it
Just
does
embrace
go
it.
away, something's wrong, I'll say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I would say, you know, I'm a creative services manager, so I'm in a manager position, managing people and process. And sometimes I ask myself, like, how the hell did I even get here? Like, who decided to put me in? You know, so I think it at times it doesn't, you know, I think you just have to build confidence over time. And I think there's a really good book. I'm gonna remember the name on it. I'll actually pull it up later. But basically, it talks about the upper limit, you're reaching your upper limit, and really people who can go the next step is it's called the big leap, right? So if you want to take that big leap and kind of grow, like allow room in your life to accept happiness and accept being great at things, right? So recognize your potential and accept the fact that it's happening to you, right? So some people, I think that's the thing though, is that we question right away and say, hey, we say like, do I really deserve this or whatever? Then I think you kind of bring yourself back down and you have to go reclimb the mountain. But I think when you've reached halfway up the hill, recognize that you're halfway up the hill and say, hey, wow, this is good. Like, I'm doing good. I'm going to go further. Right. So I think accept your wins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I would add to that, like identifying what you're good at and what you're not is important. Like imposter syndrome, I think the negative side of it is, I guess there's two sides. One is the good side is you're humble and you ask questions and you learn and you embrace it as this is something that can help me grow, this fear. The other side is you know better and you've learned from past experience and you have a perspective to offer that you feel like isn't beneficial. Like I think anybody, even like Wu was saying, like his intern has unique values, and the fact that he's a really good animator and he can offer that, bring that to the table. So it's important to recognize that you do have experiences that other people don't have, perspectives that are really, really important and necessary for company growth.
I'll say that to get to halfway up that hill, if you're really at the bottom of the hill, to get to the halfway point, I would give yourself little wins here and there. Because when you're really low and you're like, wow, what the hell am I doing? What am I doing here? Just like find those little things that you could do on your team or in your company that could give you those like moments of, oh, I did something great. And then you'll eventually get to that halfway part, like Moha was saying, and then it'll get easier and easier to go to the top of the mountain. And so that's how I deal with my imposter syndrome, because there's really days where you get to work and you go in a meeting and you're like, I have no idea what just happened and I don't know what's next. I have so many projects, but I don't know what I'm doing. So just like focusing on one project, finding a little win, and then going to another, finding that little win. I think it just all builds up and like makes you feel more confident and feel a little better about what you're doing.
Yeah.
That's how I cope anyway.
Awesome.
Yeah, actually, I just want to add one more point to that is, if you worked for at a place for like a year or 2 years and you have not been recognized for some of those like smaller wins and, you have not received your kudos along the way, I think it's time for you to reassess, do you even want to be there? Because sometimes you might not be the supervisor or the manager or your director or whoever might not be the best fit for you, right? I mean, this is something like, I think Alexandra, you and I might have talked about this, a bit before, like really recognizing some of the things that are really good and pointing out some small things, right? And then talking about some like things that could be improved and stuff like that. And I think that's important. And this is sort of why I came to Lookout, because I found a mentor that did that with me, right? And then reassured me of areas where I was strong and where I wasn't. But if I was, I did work. This is at San Jose State, where I graduated from. I worked for a Tower Foundation department. Basically, they raise all the funding for the university, and I was there for about 6 months, working under someone who had no business managing me. I mean, honestly, this person was literally paying me to do nothing. They thought they needed some sort of like infographics here and there and all that stuff, but I never really received any real value. They weren't telling me if I was doing good, if I was doing bad, or anything. It was just a neutral situation. And that's where I think your imposter syndrome might start to kick in, and you're like, am I just faking it here? Like, what's going on, But I think if you're not getting that externally, you have to recognize that within yourself. But if you're not getting that from your management or higher ups, it's probably best that you go find a team where you are, because that's actually I think lacking some good work culture.
Well said. Cool. If you guys don't have anything to add, we'll move on to the next question, but I just wanted to give you guys a chance if you wanted to add anything. Perfect. All right.
Thanks,
So-
Alex, for giving us a chance.
My pleasure. It's my turn to ask the questions now. So I guess if you were able to go back in time, is there anything you would change or do differently within your career? I know it's a bit of a cheesy one, but genuinely, like, what would you do?
I would have started my career sooner. I don't know if that's really a helpful answer, but if you think you're passionate about it and you love it, just do it. It's something I wish I would have done more introspection in college and really tried to figure out what it is that I love to do. So that would be my answer.
I totally
Yeah,
agree with that. Go ahead, Noah.
No, I was just agreeing to as well. I'm still thinking, would I do anything different?
Oh no, okay. So well, yeah, I would say yes, I definitely agree with that, because like I was going off into college thinking like design's not going to get me anywhere, so I probably shouldn't even do it. I didn't even think about it, so I went into nursing instead. That gave me a lot of skills as a human, yes, but if I stuck to design, I think I would be like, I don't know. That sounds really cocky, but I think I would be further up in my career for sure. But yeah, if I just committed to it, because it's such a passion, like you just have to commit to your passion. Like if I wanted to be a musician, my entire life, I just commit to it earlier, but
So take risks,
for sure.
basically.
Yeah. I would say don't stress about small stuff. If you stress about small stuff, you're gonna age really quick, and then you're gonna grow a really big beard. So that might happen to you. No, but don't stress. Don't stress on small stuff. I feel like I stressed about stuff that was ultimately outside of my control. I wanted to control every aspect of design. In a team where I was basically the sole design I guess. An executive would come to me and have some feedback, and I would just be so resistant to it, and I would stress on it. But then actually, like, looking back at it, I'm like, I didn't have to stress about it. That's such a small little thing, right? I could let that go. So I choose your wins. But outside of like even just could be career related, but it also could be outside of career, like travel. I always like go back and travel. I tell everybody this. I mean, I'm doing more of it now, but definitely I think travels. I mean, you learn a lot. You learn a lot from putting yourself in different environments. So I think that's career related, but it could also not be career related. It could just be benefiting your life in general, but you never know.
Of course.
So benefiting your life will benefit your career, honestly. So yeah.
Facts. Amen to that.
The last thing I'll add is like, for anyone that's like nervous, because the one stigma I think about when that like made me hesitate to even go into design is like, can I make money? Can this be a viable career? Absolutely it can. And especially if you're passionate about it, you'll find somebody that loves what you do and wants you on their team. Like I feel like I might be too optimistic, but that's what I've seen is like the things that I've been passionate about, they get reciprocated out there, right? So like my first job, I was really interested in psychology and design. And when I met that person that was interviewing me, it was just like instant, like, okay, this is the guy. And I felt like that was the place to work. And it doesn't happen right away. There's a lot of grind in between and a lot of work, but you can absolutely find a career that you are fulfilled in within design if you are passionate about it.
Yep.
Awesome. Thank you. Moving on. What has been, so this is a bit of a long question, but bear with me. So what has been one of your most valuable experiences since you started your career in design? For example, like the coolest project that you worked on, the most impactful connection you made, the best piece of advice a mentor has given you, anything like that?
Coolest project.
I worked for an AR company and we made games that had to do with augmented reality. That was probably the funnest job I ever had. It was a startup, less than 20 people on the team. Running around to college campuses or malls or places where people would be like on their phones or just having fun and doing research that way. That's definitely one of the highlights of my career. I think the most impactful thing I've ever done was work for the Holocaust Museum out in DC. And also like that had something to do with augmented reality. So that's kind of connected to it. And yeah, that definitely changed this whole side of designing for me. It gave it meaning where it's like, oh, we have to design AR that helps people learn about these stories, these heartbreaking stories that like, you know, about the Holocaust pretty much. That was pretty great. Let somebody else go because there's a big block, Alex. You filled in this
sorry
whole
about
pill
that. Yeah,
of words.
That was a bit long.
We just
I'm
wanted to
gonna
give
read
you
the last part of it.
yeah, we wanted to give you as many like ideas, but you can talk about literally anything that you want. If it doesn't even have to be one of those 3 things that we put in there.
I feel like Danny's is the best AR and Holocaust museum. Like, just drop the mic there.
How do we follow up?
Mic drop.
Yeah, how do we follow that? We work in cybersecurity, so yeah,
It
protect
can be
people
before
from
that though.
leaking data
No,
to
I think
China.
passion project, you know.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
like
Well, I
anything
mean,
you
you
get
know,
on phone.
even in the cybersecurity world, you know, we do a lot of great stuff too, you know. So when you do learn about the impact that we create, one of the coolest things that I thought, and it's not something I directly worked on, but I'm proud of that our company did this. So with our Lookout Consumer app, you know, when this app scans your phone and checks for any malicious activity within your apps and your data, it usually gives you a reassuring notification. That's a sticky notification on your phone that says everything is okay. So a gentleman wrote to us in our basically on one of our app comments, or wrote us a direct letter to the company saying that he was in a really rough time of his life, and that he was actually contemplating ending his life. and just moments before that, he received a notification from our app that just says everything's okay. And although the intention wasn't really to be life-saving or anything like that, it moved him, right? So having a human voice in your communication, I mean, this is a very extreme example of how this literally saved someone's life, and that it caused them to think about different things. But if you just reel it back in and kind of think about, you know, when you are designing, that you are designing for humans. When you're doing communication, you're doing it for humans. Like we using simplified language and using all these different things. So that was a really good like learning moment for me. So I know that that's not really specific to like what is the most valuable experience, but this is something that like it was a moment in my career that was like, oh wow, like we literally can cause that kind of an impact, right? But on another note, like one thing that I was kind of proud of, and this is kind of going back to the imposter syndrome, is that I submitted my work to the GD USA Magazine Awards show, and basically I submitted a piece in like 2020, and first time I've ever submitted something for an award, I was really nervous, and then I was second guessing myself, like, is this
Imposter
even
syndrome.
good? Like, should I? Yeah, it's like, should I like? Am I really worthy of like, you know, an award? So I ended up receiving the award, and then my work was added to the magazine, the annual magazine, for the awards. But then I also started to receive it every single year. So the past 3 years now, I've been you know, awarded the graphic design, like, you know, American Design Awards, right? So I think that's a cool like experience, right? That's happened, and that I could go being reassured and be confident again. But it does happen even like 8-9 years into your career.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Matt, do you want to talk about anything that you have
Can I
done
take a
that's
pass on this one?
valuable? Yeah,
No,
okay.
didn't save anyone from suicide.
Yeah.
But that's a freaking awesome story. I've never heard that one, so it's awesome.
Well, you work for the company that did it, so I was trying to help us out here.
Yeah. Can I take that one too?
Use the same story.
Yeah, copy his work. The best advice I got, and this might not go over well with this crowd, but I was never an artist, and my mentor, the first one that got me into design, is a design as an art, and that gave me the courage to pursue this career path. So that was impactful to me. I've never, not that design can't be an art, I'll say that. It definitely, if you're a good artist, it carries over, but really at its core, design is what Muha's saying. It's impacting the world by basically solving problems for people that use your product and helping make their lives better. So that's where I get the meaning and the fulfillment from. Usually you're not like not saving people's lives necessarily, but you're definitely by degrees making it a better world.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you guys. So we weren't really sure how the timing was going to play out for all of these. So we had an extra slide with like some creative or extra questions. And originally we were going to like have you guys pick which question you wanted to answer if we had time. But I think, Juliet, do you have like any specific ones in mind that you wanted to start with since we have more time available?
I mean, it's really up to the speakers. Like, I think we probably have time to do like 2 or 3 before we move on to the Q&A. So it's up to you guys. You can just answer whichever ones you find more interesting.
Yeah, that first question is definitely standing out to me. What qualities do you look for in a company when you're considering applying to work there? How about red flags? When people interview you, always know in your head, you're also interviewing that person. It's not just you that's being interviewed. So don't think that you're the only one that is being judged. Like, you also have the right to judge this person. If I'm in an interview and I do not like the person interviewing me and I know I'm going to be working with them, I immediately say no. I don't think I want to move on with this, and that's just out of respect for me and my career. I think Noah touched on this too, where like if I find people who know how to communicate with me and like help me get better in my career, and if that person is like in that company and I can just, I can feel it in the air. It sounds so cheesy. That's when I go like, yeah, I definitely want to do better at this interview. I want to move on and keep going. Like the company I work at now, I read the name and I looked up what they did and I was like, I don't want to work for this company. This sounds so boring. Finance, like, no, I don't want to F people over taking their money. But then as soon as I met the product manager and the CTO and the CPO, I just immediately was like, okay, yeah, I'll do this job for us as a team. And yeah, it has the impact of like, we have leases for like small businesses. So like if you wanted to start a business, we'll give you money and you just pay us like 3 times the amount of that. But not to diss my company, I'm not really supposed to say that much about it, but yeah, the people definitely made me go like, yeah, I'll work for you. I'll work with you. I'll help our team improve. I'll help us succeed. That's what's kept me around for a little over a year now. And I know that the first job is hard because you really like, you don't want to be picky, right? Your very first job. But just respect yourself enough to have a little bit of a say. I hope I hope that made sense.
Yeah, that's really
Nice.
great advice. Yeah.
And I would say like salary will come. So don't decide a job based off salary. I had so many like people that graduated with me that were like, I'm not going to work for $17 an hour. And it's like, just take what you can get. I worked for $17 an hour for 3 months and then doubled salary in my next job. And then 6 months later, doubled it again. Like that's how tech works. Like if you have experience, know what you're doing, that is the most valuable thing, more than education. So definitely if you're going into it, like what Danny says, like it's more about the team environment. Like if there's any red flags there, if they treat you bad, if they show up late to the interview, that's a huge one. If they don't like respect you, or like if they're not prepared in the interview. I've had a couple like big execs that have interviewed me and they're just like, what do you want to talk about? It's like, it kind of feels off. So
Yeah.
Definitely those are the more important things than money at first.
Yeah, I think 2 questions I kind of want to tackle on here is the top right one and the middle left one. And I think maybe that's the ones that as students, you guys are probably most nervous about, is building portfolio. So one thing to just tell you right now, you're never going to finish it. It's going to be a lifelong you working on your portfolio. It's never going to be done. Accept that. And that's because you are your own worst critic. You're going to always want to go back and edit it. You're going to create new work. So I think for right now, you want to think about putting up projects that are going to land you your first job. And then honestly, moving from job to job, you might not even need it again. So in some instances, like you might be recommended to a different position, right? So just think about that and think about when you move to a different position, then start to re-cater your portfolio for the job that you want, right? So you want to go and work in a specific company and, you know, kind of study that company and then look up or that industry, right? And then start to look at what the industry kind of is asking for, and then cater your portfolio a little bit to that, and then shoot for your 80%. You're not going to 100% complete it. That's just not going to happen. So I think what's it called? That's one of those things. And then two, you know, this is like, as a hiring manager, if you show me a project that's just like you're showing me how you lay things out with Lorem Ipsum and all this stuff, I don't care, because so many other people can YouTube and learn it within an hour, right? What I care to see is that you have some like thought behind it, your write-ups about that project, right? I worked on this and this was the challenge I was trying to solve, and then I took these steps, right? So that's really qualitative if you can match that with some of the projects that you're showing, right? So if your work, you know, you're showcasing an app, what was that app about? What was the problem you were trying to solve? And how did you contribute to it? And what was the kind of the key element that you brought to the table? So I want to kind of learn from that, and that's what's going to get you hired. When we talk about freelancing, you know, this is something that don't sell yourself short. Try to avoid you know, working for family or friends, because they're expecting that you do things for like $10, like to build an entire brand for $15. That's not going to happen, right? So consider who you want to freelance for. Don't take up too many freelance projects. You know, try to really kind of like focus on one or two to really like bring your best self to them. And then think about, I'll share with Alexandru maybe some resources for like how to construct your own contract. There's some legalities behind some of this stuff. Protect yourself. Understand your local taxes, right? So, you know, if you're US based, you have to do a 1099-C. So like, you know, if you're getting paid more than $500 from one person in a year, you're going to have to do those taxes. So there, you have to understand that you have to pay those taxes, an estimated tax every quarter. So like that sort of stuff you got to understand. And then you know, how to do pricing, right? That's something that everyone's always confused about. Like, how much should I charge? I'll share with you guys a little calculator tool that I've always kind of like referenced to get started, but it does require for you to like evaluate yourself. What do you think you're worth per hour, right? And then, you know, there's other contributors to that, but first, like, understand that in the area that you're working at, what is the company size that you're like helping out as freelancer, right? So are you helping out Microsoft, or are you helping out some flower shop down the street, right? How much can they really pay? So like, don't overprice it for the flower shop, but then don't undersell yourself for Microsoft, because they could pay. So I think trying to kind of understand that a little bit. So there's just some of those tools to help you calculate that. And you know, even when you're giving an estimate of time, don't shoot for like, oh, I could get this done tomorrow. Give yourself some leeway. Say, okay, this might require 2 weeks, 3 weeks. This might require, you know, I'm counting in, if you give me some feedback, I want like 2 rounds of feedback. You know, I need some time to brief. Also, count up all the time that you think you'll spend emailing back and forth. For every 15 minutes that you're on email, you should be compensated for that, right? So you communicating with the client, you should be compensated for communicating with the client. That's like administrative side of your freelance business, right? So think about kind of you know, if you package up a pricing package for somebody, say like, hey, I'm going to need 10 hours to like technically work on this, 4 hours of feedback, and then 6 hours is like miscellaneous administrative, right? Kind of like hook that on there. because you should be compensated for all your time spent.
Wow.
And
That is
Well, I
awesome.
feel
you
like
should definitely share some of, I don't know what you've used, Muhammad. I've used like a few different tools to help me with my freelance work. Like it's called Bonsai is my first one that I've ever used. It helped me with the contracts and everything, like time stamping, getting, yeah, that one, getting feedback directly on that app. Like there's plenty of choices, but that's just one that I've used before.
Yeah, so
Good start.
AIGA is the American Institute of Graphic Arts. That is like, that should be your go-to website for some of this stuff. And here, I'll drop it in the chat. But that's where I've kind of found a sample contract. So you can go and look at an entire library of their resources and what they have, and kind of like explore their website a little bit. They're really out there to help out design professionals. And then New School is a, and I will share this. This was a tool that was like literally introduced to me in college, you know, like 7-8 years ago. So and it's still, I think, relevant. And this is the calculator tool that I used from them. It's basically they put together a little bit of an equation for people to say, like, how much should I charge, right? This is just a simple question. It's like, how much should I really charge a project? And I use that to calculate, and then the number that it spits out, I then kind of use that as like a middle ground. I say, okay, well, I see that it spit this out, but I might actually mark this up a little bit. Or, you know, it is a family friend, and I might, you know, give a little leeway. I might drop the price down a little bit. Or I might say, hey, this is the base price, but if you go over, it's an additional $60 an hour. Right. So I might do, so it's all kind of fluid. It's how you build it. It's like, you don't have to be very strict. It depends on the client you're working with, because you're a freelancer, you can do whatever you want. And you know, understand that I was talking about taxes. When you are doing your taxes, and you know, if you're US based, I'm not sure about Canada, but if you're US based, you know, what we are able to do is basically save all your receipts, and you can write them off, right? So like rent and electricity and internet and all this stuff. So like you could write portions of those things off if you're working from home and you're doing your freelance job, because when you do your taxes, you're seen as a business, right? As a freelancer, you're essentially a business. So and I'm sure that that's very similar in Canada as well, that, you know, when you have to go through any sort of taxation or anything like that, that you know, get familiar with that, with the local governments and all that stuff.
Yeah, I think the
Yeah.
biggest mistake I made at
Labor
first when I
laws.
freelanced was not add the taxes into the cost. Like the taxes that I
Yeah.
would have to pay. That was like one of the biggest things. And I lost so much money because of it.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's not fun.
so just as a heads up, this was recorded, and I'm definitely gonna you know, message everyone here, like the 3 speakers after this, and get them to send me like a list of resources if they want to. And then I'll put that on the YouTube video that we're also going to upload, so you guys can have access to all of that. And thank you once again for all of those amazing tips. That was great. Matt, I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that to those 2 questions, which sort of went together.
No, I mean, how are we on time right now?
So I think we still have like 10 minutes before we're going to switch over to Q&A. So if you want, you can add more to
Okay.
that one, or if not, I know you're probably really excited to talk about the ChatGPT one.
The
from what you were saying. So
ChatGPT.
it's up to you, whatever you want. They both got to answer a question, so you can choose whatever you want.
Yeah, they covered it pretty well too. I feel like Muha, you should like start a freelance course or something.
Yeah.
You'd probably make some good money off that. Yeah, ChatGPT is awesome. That's Alex and I have many conversations about that at work. It's gonna be a game changer. I look at it in like a specific framework, and it's something I've just kind of like been developing because it's so new. But if you think about, I'm also kind of into like gaming programming, and I watched this documentary on it recently. And back in the day when gaming was like, I don't know how you guys might be too young for this, but they had this like little brick and you play on it. It's called a Game Boy, and every single pixel they had to code it individually. And so it took them, weeks just to get that out. But now we're at the point, they just released the newest Unreal Engine 6, I think is what it was. And they have some AI functionality in there where basically you just take pre-built assets, put it onto your file, and it maps it out according to the layout of the game already. So that's analogy, I think, for AI. I used it recently. Like I wrote some code, it wasn't working, so I took it, copied and pasted it, and said, "What's wrong with this?" ChatGPT gave me an answer and immediately fixed it and just improved that workflow. And I've even had it like write code from scratch for me. I just tell it what I need it to do. It'll create it. Obviously, it's not perfect yet, and it probably never will be. So I think it's a big representation of the tech field in general. It's always going to be changing, improving, growing. And if you don't like constantly learning, don't do this job, because you're going to have to completely change. Like Muha and Danny we probably both started in Sketch, right? That was the first software that was like big for design work, and it was a good product, but now everybody uses Figma, and that's only developed in the last year. So your workflows would change, the tools you use will change, but ultimately it's going to make your work easier and make your job more impactful. So.
For the AI stuff, sorry, can I just
Talk about
insert
yourself.
this one thing? What?
Mhm.
Sorry.
Oh,
No,
I
I
just
was
wanted to
telling Matt,
say,
talk about yourself. I started in. Go ahead.
The Zoom
I
calls.
have used ChatGPT for things like writing emails. So when you're applying and making like cover letters and things like that, definitely go to ChatGPT and write it out and then ask like, how can I improve this and stuff. It makes a huge difference. If I have to write an email to my CEO, I'll go to ChatGPT first and make sure that I sound really smart before I send it. I think it's definitely helped with communication. I've even done it for like developers, like this developer said this, what does it mean? And it like gives me answers. Designers who have to write copy, I would go to ChatGPT for that as well. It's just like, use it to your advantage. Let it help you, but don't completely rely on it, because there are days when you go on and it's down and then everybody panics and it's the end of the world.
And you forget how to write email.
Yes, exactly.
What are words?
It's interesting you say that, because also there's a data security implication here too. And obviously I have to bring that up. Working at a cybersecurity company, we've actually been asked by our RT not to feed anything about our company into ChatGPT, because it is like machine learning. It's picking up this information and data. So we have to be very sensitive as to what is actually inputted in there, not to have it learn specific things and not to further like educate how to hack, right? So because we're protecting against those sort of things, right? So that's just very but I think you bring up a really good point about like proofing your like copy or content quality, right? And I think that's really important, and that's a really cool way that you've done it with the cover letter, right? So I think that's a really good skill set to have. As going back to one of the original questions, is like learn to use ChatGPT learn to use some of these tools to benefit you, right? You don't have to be a perfect writer to write emails. And till this day, I use Grammarly to correct all my emails because I butcher the hell out of my written language. So.
Awesome. Cool. I think we're gonna probably move on to Q&A now. We also had some questions that some people submitted, but I think we'll start with in person, and then you guys can either, unmute yourself and ask a question, or write it in the chat. Maybe actually like raise your hands if you want to ask a question, so we can unmute you so that it's not like a big chaos. Or you can just type it in the chat, whatever works best.
We want to see your beautiful faces, so get on camera, people.
And I guess while people are maybe writing their question, I can start with one that was submitted to us when we did our sign up form. And someone said, what's your best advice on learning more about UX or UI design if your school doesn't offer any classes or much about it?
That's going to be the big one, I feel like.
It's definitely McGill has that issue, yeah.
Yeah.
YouTube, that's what Matt's gonna say.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with YouTube.
There's nothing wrong.
I mean, YouTube's free.
Well,
it's good quality.
you have a great example from Online Image with Cass.
Oh, he
Sorry?
just, one of on my second job that I was at, and this can happen if you're outgoing and social and you're passionate. Like, this guy just showed up and he's like, put me to work, I want to do design. He just barely had graduated from, it was a gaming design program, so he had little to none experience in what we were doing, but just based off of like him being a cool dude, we're like, yeah, come work for us. And eventually worked his way up the company and got a full-time job there. And then now he's at a finance company as well, getting paid 100,000. So I'm envious of him, because like that would be the ideal path, I think. The path I took was the boot camp method, where you go take a 3-month course full time and you learn just specifically UX skills. Mine was in person, but they have a bunch of online ones. They're both really good. Ultimately, though, like for Alex, when we hired him, he was hired on as a design role. He just had like a portfolio. You knew he was interested in it. The design club thing was a standout. I looked through his work and I was like, this is good. He has an eye for design, and that was the decision maker. So sometimes that's all it takes. Just showing that you have some design work, having a couple projects in your portfolio.
And
That's good.
I shared a link. It's for UXL, and it's like pretty much free for the standard pack, but there's like a $6 a month to start learning things that you could do with product design. There's so many little places like that, and I know we made fun of YouTube, but honestly, it's a huge help. So go on there and watch some videos and actually pay attention.
Okay, so we got a bunch of questions, actually. I don't know, Muha, if you wanted to add
Yeah.
anything to that. If not, I could go ahead and read the next question.
No, I was just dropping links in Skillshare,
awesome.
Code Academy, LinkedIn Learning. These are all places you might have to pay for, but they might have student discounts. So take advantage of utilizing your student emails, because some places do offer that. Lots of places to learn, lots.
Yeah, just have to go out and look. Okay, next up we have Maddie, and she said, would you say that you use Figma on a daily basis? Would you recommend we learn this tool?
Yes. And yes.
That
will be your
Adobe just
butter.
bought Figma not very long ago, and so a few of these things that are in the Adobe tools are coming into Figma, and they're kind of merging together. So I would say like I think Figma is going to rule the world. There was a stat I saw today actually that, like Matt was saying, we both started off using SketchUp. Only like 2 to 3% of designers to this day use Sketch. And so and then the next one I think was XD, but then Adobe bought Figma, and I think Figma is going to be the next XD. And I'd say go 100%, go learn it.
Yeah, and we were in the market when it was early. I think right now it's matured more, and Figma's really become the standout, and it's probably going to stay that way. So it's worth investing. It's not a hard tool to learn either. So
yeah.
I was actually in a design session years back, and these guys came in and they're like, "Hey, we're founders of this web-based app called Figma. We want to just pitch it to you guys, designers." And we were like listening to this stuff, and then he's giving us a demo, and I was like, "This thing is so freaking cool," but I'm like, "But no way! Like we're gonna use this because Adobe rules." And then fast forward to today, and it's like it's definitely a standard. And even I don't work in product design. I work in communications, marketing, and brand. I'm leveraging it a lot, and I almost expect any external vendor I work with to be familiarized with it.
Well said. So the next question that we had on the list comes from Coco, and she said, "I'm with my roommate, and it's a bit inconvenient to talk. Since it's a career of design, would you regard it as more technical or artistic?"
Both.
Depends.
Yeah, for me, more technical, because I do a lot of the development side. The tool Webflow is more hybrid of code in Figma, and I have to do a lot of JavaScript implementations. That can be your career path, and you could still technically be a designer. But obviously you guys, like Danny, I'm sure you're more artistic in some ways. I don't know. Muha is definitely more artistic.
There's such a lot. Yeah, I was gonna say he's shaking his head.
I mean, I would replace that word artistic with creative. It's a creative, and like artistic, I don't know, when you say artistic, I'm thinking you're talking about painting, so it's like definitely a creative, it's using artistry and creativity to be a designer, which aka means a problem solver, right? So it's just using those things that are in your palette, right, which is design principles, elements, and your study of design and your study of artistry. You can bring in artistry, you can be good at sketching, you can be good at a lot of these things. You're bringing that to the table, but your first and foremost job is a problem solver. So it's not it is technical, it is artistic, but it's more so you're almost like a strategist, you're a thinker, right? So so I would say it's more so like strategic.
Yeah, it definitely depends. To me, artistic means like emotions more than thought. And Muha, you can stab me for this. I'm so sorry. But creativity is it could be totally different from like being a creative person or being an artistic person. They could be two different things. So, but yeah, like you're saying, it depends because you could be a product designer, you could be a designer but only do research, and like Matt, you could be a designer but do like code, things like that. So there isn't really an answer.
Yeah, the important artistry stuff that I find common in any job, typography, want to understand typography really well, color, want to understand really well, grid system. So that's, and especially for me, I'm building a responsive like site most of the time, like it has to work on mobile and on desktop, understanding how the elements fold together when you get it down on a smaller screen, a larger screen. That kind of stuff is like, no matter what role you take, that's going to be important.
Yeah, and if you know some fundamental things like sketching and painting and drawing and doing illustrations, those things are an advantage to you, but but you know, I do know lots of successful designers that don't know how to do that, you know, so it does not make them any less of a designer, right? Because they're applying fundamental like principles of design. And like Matt was talking about, like a lot of times even on product and building apps and stuff like that, they might go and elect an illustrator, work with an illustrator to build out a couple of these things, but they're really the ones that are deciding and saying, hey, I want these illustrations to look like this and feel like that, and they're like directing it, right? And then they'll go and apply the typography and the colors and the layouts, but they themselves might not know how to sketch that illustration. So that's you know, that's for you to be a successful designer within that regard is like you being okay with the things you don't know, and then you know, asking for help, or you know, understanding if you need to build that skill set or not, right? So it might be a one-off project, you might not need to build that entire skill set, but if your entire, like all your projects require that skill set, something you might want to learn or pick up on.
Yeah, when I taught design, there's actually this thing I make my students do on the first day was go on the whiteboard and draw me like a person on their phone, and they have the worst stick figures, and it just like sometimes didn't even look like anything. And then I'd say, okay, now draw me like a website that has this functionality, or that like a website for a blog or something like that. They can do it super easy. It's like product designers don't have to know how to draw. You really just you can start by just drawing a box inside a box inside a box. So
Cool.
But that
Boxes.
decision making that you make is creative,
yeah.
right? So that's where
Yeah.
creativity comes in.
Mhm.
Thanks for your answers. So we have 3 more questions in the chat. The first one is Brenda. Brenda asks, I'd be curious about what your day-to-day looks like in your respective roles.
I was laughing at this one when I was there. Alexandria, what do you think my day-to-day looks like?
Yeah.
Alex.
It's just, I just imagine a big calendar with meetings one after the other nonstop. How accurate was that?
Have you guys seen the painting Dante's Inferno, depiction of hell? That's what my day-to-day looks like.
Let's not discourage. Let's see, my day to day. There's always I'm sure you guys have learned about like the daily stand-ups. Some people don't need those, some people do, but they usually start with that. It gives you like a moment to connect with your developers and kind of look back at the previous day and then look forward to what you're going to do. There's a lot of meetings in my job. I'm one of 2 designers. But there's like one goal that I have with my day, and it's to have like 1 to 2 hours to myself and focus. I call it focus time, and I could use that to learn something, or just like literally shut out anyone and everyone and just do my thing, like just design. That's usually what every day looks like for me.
Yeah, I don't know. There's interesting, like there's some days that are more interesting, but a lot of problem solving. So it's like meetings, and then when I get time on my own, it's usually like, how are we gonna like implement this new part of the website? Like for example, yesterday it was create a sitemap for this new section of the website. And then a lot of the meetings are centered around like content strategy. So like meeting with an SEO agency to understand how we can get that new content to rank better, meeting with our content team to understand what kind of like use case this new page is going to have, how that is going to influence the rest of this site, what kind of CTAs we want to put on it to drive conversions. that kind of stuff. But it really ranges. Like 2 months ago, I was doing something completely different, and now I'm focused like mostly on organic growth strategy. So
Cool, interesting. So next, Polly asks, does working in design ever feel solitary or lonely? And if so, how do you manage that?
Yes, and I don't know.
yeah,
I'm just kidding.
Does it feel
Working remotely, it is hard. Yeah, you do get. I mean, Moha, you know this, like, you guys all work remote. Lookout doesn't have offices, really.
Wait, are all three of you
Yeah.
guys working remote? Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So I've been working remote for the past like 3 years or so. Maybe even longer than that. Three sounds good. So I've been working remote for 3 years, and yeah, I mean, I'm a people person. I really want to, and I've been working at Lookout for like 4+ years. So I have spent time in the office, and we used to have a very dynamic environment working. Product designers, marketing designers, we get together, you know, you get your lunches, and, you know, Bay Area is kind of like a cool, trendy place and all that stuff. So it was really interesting, you know, hop on the train, go to work and all that stuff. But working from home, I guess, is a little bit different because I have to create some sort of a separation between my house and my office, right? So, or my work self. I actually do get dressed up every single day as if I'm going to go to the office, just to create that physical separation. I never work out of bed. So I even put on cologne and everything as if I'm literally about to be around people. I just create that sort of a ritual for myself, really, so that when I'm done at 5 p.m., I'm gonna go and change into like more comfortable around the house clothes. Just so that I could create some sort of a separation. But the benefit of like working from the house is that, you know, in the morning I will go and answer a couple of emails. We do have Slack, the communication platform, and then there'll probably be a lot of back and forth with a lot of different team members, problem solving, right? Most of it is problem solving, as Matt mentioned, and around noontime I'll probably play some Call of Duty or Zelda or something, and then I'll get back to work again. So I think, things like die down meeting wise later in the day, so I get to like really kind of focus in and start designing, and then get off of work and then play some more Call of Duty and Zelda, and then that's really it.
so now I know not to message you at noon, because I
No,
know
I have and that's the thing though. I mean, Matt and Alexandra know that on my calendar, if you look at my calendar, every single day I have an 1 hour block from 11 to 12. And that's because it could be very easy for people to kind of forget that you're a human being and just start putting meetings on there. So I actually have scheduled 1 hour lunches so that people think like, oh, that's a meeting, and they don't like plan something during that time. But every single day, 11 to 12, I've blocked that off because, one, I want to eat food, right? And then I need to separate that a little bit so that people can understand, like, hey, it's just like in an office. I would walk away from my computer at this time, right? I would be out getting some food or something like that.
Yeah. So I need to block 1 to 2, so I'm on your same time zone. So we can play Call of Duty.
I do the same thing, Moha. Played Zelda today during lunch.
Hop on COD real quick.
Hop on COD for lunch.
I'll say when I do
Actually-
get really like lonely in my design, I've like, this also comes with meeting people, but there's groups on like Discord that I found. Like today we messed with the AI that Discord has, and we were telling it to make us photos, and it was fun. It got me out of that like kind of alone feeling. So finding little groups like that, like at work, we started a Scrabble game, and that kind of like is just on your phone, right? And little things like that I would do to get out of your head being sad and alone and remote at home.
Yeah, I think that's probably the main point, right? Like remote work is different. Like when I worked in office, it was like I had too much of my coworkers. I was tired of them. But when you're remote, you don't really get an opportunity to spend time with them. So adding in like little fun things in the day, games, Call of Duty could be a good one.
Golfing.
Little golfing. I don't know how you do that remote, but that's my personal time.
I
But
guess there's
yeah,
another
it's
side to it too, where like if your teammates don't understand you as a designer, maybe that's what this question was going more towards, and I'm so sorry. But yeah, how would you
We
guys
started
like
getting really
deal
sad.
with that? Right, Michal, like you've been in that situation where you're like maybe you're like the only designer or something like that, and you do feel alone because other people on your team don't quite understand what you're going through or what you're doing. How would you manage that?
Yeah. I mean, I try to educate it as much as possible, but also like I liked certain individuals to be my advocates, like my supervisor, right? So building good partnerships and you know finding your advocates and people who are going to kind of get your back. There's a lot of people that like respect me in my field. I mean, and I feel like Matt would be like one individual, right? And he would get my back on certain things and like, oh, I understand what Muha is saying, or like it makes sense that this would be you know done. And then it's like him from when they're viewing him as like a front end developer or something like that, they're like, oh, okay, well, if he's saying this, then now I can kind of believe him more. You know what I'm saying? So like there's a little bit of that is like advocate for each other to build good chemistry. So I think that's there. But yeah, I mean, I feel like I have to educate people quite a bit, but I think that that's just also the nature of my like level that I'm at. You know, because I'm expected to be kind of the spokesperson for our visual brand identity.
yeah. It's pretty common too. I mean, at all the places I worked at, unless you're at like a Google or a Facebook where design is really mature at the organization, you kind of have to fight for your seat at the table and really like educate often. And you'll learn as you go. There's like people that will advocate for you, and there's different ways of communicating. Usually, if you can tie what you're doing with design to business goals and metrics, that seems to click better with executives because all they care about is revenue. So
Yeah.
it's a lot of communicating though, for sure. And yeah, it can be lonely.
Cool. So technically we're over time. I don't know if you guys are still in the mood to answer some more questions. I don't know. How do you guys feel? Don't want to put you on the spot or
There's
anything.
two more.
Yeah, I think
Yeah, we
so
have
too.
two more.
I'm okay. I had like 4 cups of coffee today. So.
Bro.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
juiced.
So the next one comes from Eugene, who asks, which program or school do you recommend to learn valuable UI UX experience or for a certificate? For example, Coursera, Concordia is one of our universities in Canada. And which is more important for starters, certificate or projects on a personal portfolio?
Projects.
They should come hand in
100%.
hand.
Certificates or projects.
Yeah, usually these courses, the whole point of them is to give you a project that you put on your portfolio. And the portfolio is the thing that, at least when I hire, I don't look at courses, I look at the portfolio.
I'll ask a quick follow-up. Do you guys ever see like the same project popping up multiple times when you're hiring and you're like, oh, clearly that guy took the UX course from Google? Like, do you see that as less, I guess, less impressive,
No.
specifically because it's been like the 4th or 5th time you see it?
No, because everyone has a fresh take on it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
But that's
like
a good question.
the writing of the actual study of the case study on your portfolio. If I've come across multiple that are the same project, but the case study sounds like copy paste, then that's what turns me off. But if it's the same project, it's fine. I would just want the actual study to be written well and with more of them personally than like the whole general gist of like what the research was and stuff like that.
Perfect.
A good copy is important. Yeah.
Muhammad,
You
do
guys
have anything
asking
you
for
wanna
like
add?
hiring stages? Are you guys asking for like hiring stages? Is that what it is? Like,
Or just in general, like if you wanna, maybe you already at a company and then you're just looking for other places, like how do you, that's how I interpret the question, by the way, I might be interpreting wrong, but like what's
Yeah.
more important, would you say?
I think more important is your projects and even on resumes, like let's say you're listing out universities. I mean, I don't know every single university that and their program, so I have no idea if you studied at a good program or not. I might trust like the program I came out of more because I just know it, but I'm not gonna like like for example, hiring my intern, right? I didn't know the university that he studied at, right? But I was focused on his resume and what sort of like projects he works on, what his interests are. And as much as the projects are important, is also like their character too, and their personality, because I'm going to be working with this individual. I want to make sure we can build good chemistry. So if we're like night and day different in our personalities, it doesn't matter how great of a designer you are, we can't work together. That's like the most important part, is that we have to be able to like riff off of each other and build a good vibe. So even in interviews, I'm trying to catch a vibe with somebody too. I sound so trendy. I'm just trying to get catch a vibe.
Yeah.
but that's
Vibe
kind
check.
of like I'm trying
And even
doing vibe checks for sure.
like putting personality in your projects, I'd say that comes through like little like artwork that you work on in the side, if you're into that, or hobbies that you're interested in. That kind of stuff goes a long way.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I love that.
And then we have our last question. So the Eugene asks again, could you list 3 things that you don't like the most working as a UX designer or any designer in general? I actually think knowing the dark side of the story is not that bad.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Very good.
I told Alex this like the first day of the job. He's like, well, because I've kind of fallen into more the design dev work, but I just couldn't. And it's not that like the feedback, so I couldn't handle like the constant feedback all the time, because you're kind of in the organization, you're front and center. Maybe not you, but your work is. And so you'll get feedback from all sorts of people, and it's constant, and lots of times it's just
Unsolicited.
excuse my language, yeah, it's just some asshole person that's just like, I hate life and I just want to trash your work, and you don't really have any control over it sometimes because they're in a leadership position over you. And so like in past careers, like 10 rounds of feedback, and we just kept having to iterate on one design over and over again. And that kind of stuff can get grating for sure. So you have to have some tough skin. But it's not like that at every organization either.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I mean, if your leader shit on you all the time, please leave.
Yeah. Or
Sorry,
Yeah, that's
Steve.
the other side.
them leave. Or have them leave.
That's a dark part.
Or have
That's
them
dark.
live.
That's really dark.
In our situation, have them
Oh
leave.
my goodness.
These guys know what I'm talking about.
We're talking about a personal story right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's sad
That's
because
the
I know it
thinking.
too.
Yeah.
There's so many dark sides to a career.
But that's for all
That is
careers,
very
let's be
sad,
honest,
but
so.
it's true.
So true.
There's a lot of responsibility on you, and it definitely can suck sometimes.
Mhm.
Yeah, like
Leadership
the
roles, they
design.
know this for sure. Like if you, especially if you're in like a new leadership role, that's just something that eats you up at night when you go to bed.
Yeah, perspective is important. Perspective is important. A lot of toughness is gonna come at you, and I think your perspective really matters. Do you take that situation and kind of continue to like feed it and say like, oh my God, this is bad, this sucks, or do you take that situation and say, okay, well, this is just a little bit of a challenge, and then how do I work through it, right? That's part of you being a resilient designer and trying to solve those problems, right? So we've had a lot of hardships. These guys know, like I've been a sole designer for an entire like brand and like marketing and all this stuff. So a lot of people are like, how are you doing the job of like 10 people? Well, because I could change my perspective on certain things. I could say, okay, well, this here is not that bad, but it could be bad if I feed into it. If I go in and mope about it, this could be like probably it could probably ruin my entire career. Like I would quit or change my entire career trajectory. So I think perspectives are just important. Like know that
Yeah.
some things are just gonna be challenging, and just how do you work through them, and taking a breath, right? Just pause, take a breath, and say, okay, this is just gonna be a new challenge. Let me just get through it, and let me seek my advocates. I mean, there's a lot of people that are gonna help you out with a lot of different stuff.
Yeah, and maybe pick your battles too. Like
Mm.
you're not gonna do
Pick your
like,
battles,
especially
sure.
for someone in Muha's position, there's like 10 different projects he's working on. There's probably some that are gonna be really impactful and some that are just like not as important that you can kind of, I don't want to say neglect, but definitely
Set
I
aside.
mean, if you've read the book, don't like Subtle Art of Not Giving a F word. This is a
We're not getting
cool
a
event.
fuck.
I
You
can't
can
say
the
it.
word fuck. We're all adults. Fuck.
Yeah, we're all university students.
This isn't a Utah university, I forgot.
Yeah.
Oh,
Um,
gosh.
but yeah, like it's basically that philosophy you need to bring to your work. Like, and like you'll get feedback that's not constructive and you'll know it. And that you just have to disconnect from and say, like, I'll take what I can get from it and try and improve. But like ultimately that's just their opinion. That's not actually that helpful.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I think that's pretty much it then. That's all we had time for. Thanks everyone for submitting questions. I don't want to put you guys again on the spot, but just asking. Oh, I think I just disconnected. Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, we hear you
sorry
now.
about that.
Just froze
I
for a
made it
second.
all throughout without crashing once. Anyways, sorry to put you guys on the spot again. I just wanted to know if you guys would be okay with us sharing your LinkedIn account so that people can connect with you. Is that okay with everyone? If you don't feel comfortable with that, it's all good.
Yeah,
We all have the right to
definitely. Yeah.
say no on LinkedIn.
Exactly.
But yeah, go ahead and try. I'm just kidding. Yeah.
So
Just give me the
Julian, can you
option
put
to
those-
reject you.
feed Muha's ego a bit by asking to connect, and then he can say no.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Julia, can you
Yes.
put those in the chat for everyone?
Yeah, of course. I had already saved them. We were just waiting. to
Yeah, we
ask.
just wanted to have your
This
permission.
is
Yeah,
ready to
feel free
send.
to message me, and I'll do my best to answer questions. I'm an open book when it comes to my career, so go for it.
There you
Yeah.
I
go.
want to challenge
Those are the
Alex for his job. You can ask me.
Yeah.
I'll give you some competition, Alex.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to be here. We really appreciate it. I know even though I've been working with two of you guys, so far I've learned so much from you, but just all the stuff you talked about tonight was super useful. I'm definitely gonna, like pester you guys until you give me all the resource lists so I can post that. But once again, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much. And especially because of the lack of design resources at our university. And like, I'm sure a lot of other universities, this is super helpful for people who haven't started their careers in design. So thank you so much. And hope you all have a good evening, or for whatever time it is where you guys are.
Yeah. Enjoy
to crack
yeah,
open the
Call of Duty.
beers.
Yeah.
The beers and Call of Duty.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thanks,
Yeah.
guys. It's
The Zoom thing.
Dory Fruit.
Thank you all. I think everybody's starting to freeze.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Everyone's saying thank you in the chat. Thanks everyone for showing up as well.